All right. WHGE 95.3 FM coming up. The Open Eye. Hey, Jafar, I see you, bro.
Those of us that indulge in or commit intellectual violence don't do so for the pleasure of mental masturbation or ego diddling. We do so because the chains of oppression in our people's minds are deep and difficult to remove.
Good morning, my children of the sun. Welcome to the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist and host, right here to get that eye open. And as we always start, every generation has its purpose. Ours is to reveal the truth and reverse the brainwashing. And that's what we do right here on the Open Eye. Before I get in deep and get started here, some personal business to take care of here. First of all, I want to say get well soon to my dear friend Tony Watson. Some of you may know her as Tony Wing. She had spent a couple of months in the hospital, and she is now out of the hospital. And so glad to hear that. And keep her in your thoughts and prayers. My second shout out is to my cousin Cassandra Davis. Big ups, Cassandra Davis. The Seals and the Gibbs family are so proud of you. Why are we proud of her? Because my cousin Cassandra Davis has been appointed magistrate judge for Kent County by Governor Matt Meyer. Big ups, cuz we love you. I'm sure Uncle Bill and Aunt Gladys are smiling down on you. That's her grandparents. We are so proud of you, cuz. All right. Moving right along. Okay. And welcome to the Open Eye. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you catch my show. And you're tuned into the Open Eye. And if you're listening right now, that means your mind is already doing something most folks are afraid to do. And that's to open your mind. This is the space where we don't just talk about what happened. We talk about why it happened, who benefits, and who's paying the price. From Wilmington streets to world events, from neighborhood struggles to global power plays, we connect the dots. They hope you will never be able to line up. Because information without context is just noise. But truth with clarity, that's liberation. So whether you're riding down Market Street, posted on the block at work, or with one earbud in, or at home with a cup of coffee, lean in. We're not here for comfort. We're here for consciousness. Let's sharpen the vision. Let's question the narrative. And let's see what's really there. This is the Open Eye. All right, let me get my disclaimer out the way. Oh, wait a minute, where are we at here? All right. Get that disclaimer out of there.
The views and opinions expressed on the Open Eye are those of the hosts, guests, and contributors, and do not reflect the policy or position of WHGE 95.3 FM nor our sponsor, the Delaware Center for Homeless Vets. Any content provided by Open Eye's hosts, guests, or contributors are theirs and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, company, or individual.
All right. Moving right along. Okay. Let's get with it. All right. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. Yes, the hey, Rhonda, I see you there, sister. All right. Today, we're not just talking about a school. We're talking about a freedom institution. A place where education wasn't routine. It was resistance. A place that stands as living proof that when this country delayed justice, black communities built their own future anyway. Now, I'm talking about my mom's alma mater, and a lot of you that grew up on the East Side, this Black History Month. We're talking about Howard High School of Technology. Let's go back to 1866. The Civil War had just ended. Slavery was over on paper, but opportunity, rights, safety, those were still under construction. In that moment, when the nation was unstable, Black Wilmington was crystal clear about one thing. If you can read, you can rise. If you can learn, you can lead. At 12th and Orange Street, the cornerstone for the Howard School was laid. Named for Union General Oliver Otis Howard, head of the Freedmen's Bureau, the agency tasked with helping formerly enslaved people build lives beyond bondage. But don't get it twisted. Government names don't build legacies, communities do. Howard was powered by Black parents who wanted more for their children than survival. They wanted literacy, dignity, profession, possibility. Hey, boy. By day, children learn primary and grammar lessons. By night, adults build those same rooms, learning to read, learning grammar, learning to become teachers themselves. That building was not just a school. It was a freedom engine, breaking barriers. In 1887, Howard did something revolutionary for Delaware. It became the first high school for African Americans in the state. At a time when Black education was supposed to stop at just enough, Howard pushed forward. The principal, Edwina B. Cruz, didn't wait for staff or funding. She taught the high school curriculum herself. That's not administration, that's mission work. Then in 1893, Howard's first graduating class walked across the stage at Wilmington's Grand Opera House. Let's pause there. Black students, higher education, public graduation in the 19th century. That was a declaration of presence in a society built on exclusion. One school carrying a whole people. For nearly 40 years, Howard remained the only high school available to Black students in Delaware. Imagine the pressure. Every future teacher, lawyer, business person, civic leader, they all funneled through one institution. Enrollment surged. Additions were built. Wait lists formed. Howard wasn't just a school. It was the gateway to professional Black life in Delaware. One of its most famous graduates, Lewis L. Redding, class of 1919. Redding would go on to challenge segregation laws in Delaware courts, helping set the stage for legal battles connected to Brown versus Board of Education. See how that works? How it educated minds. Those minds challenged systems. Those challenges changed history. Howard moved to its current location in 1927, growing with Wilmington's Black community. But even after Brown versus Board declared school segregation unconstitutional, Delaware didn't suddenly become just. In fact, Howard was the last school in Delaware to desegregate in 1975. That's not ancient history. That's in my lifetime. That's within living memory. That means generations of black students still carried the weight of segregation long after the law said it was over. Howard stood through it all. Reconstruction, Jim Crow, civil rights, desegregation battles, never closing, never folding, never abandoning its purpose. I'll tell you the mission that never changed. Today it's called Howard High School of Technology. The curriculum has evolved. Trades, technology, modern programs, but the core remains exactly what it was in 1866. Education as liberation. Education as mobility. Education as self-determination. Howard represents something powerful. When systems try to confine us, we educate our way out. When doors stay shut, we build our own institutions. When history tries to erase, we leave monuments. Howard is not just Wilmington history. It's Reconstruction history. It's civil rights history. It is black resilience made brick. Shout outs to the class of 52. That's when my mom graduated from Howard High. WHGE 95.3 FM. This is The Open Eye. Hey, Sherry, I see you, sister. All right, big ups, boy. Howard High grad. Yes, Steve. All right. WHGE 95.3 FM. This is The Open Eye. Check this out. This is from New York Times report. Negroes begin their massive migration from rural South to the Anglo-created urban centers. The New York Times reports out in 1919. Even though recurrent race riots had made the public aware that the Negro problem has entered upon a new and dangerous phase. Only those in touch with the inner forces that are playing on ignorance, prejudice, and passion realize how great this menace is. That New York Times line from 1919 is in journalism. It's a window into the white panic of the era. Let's call it what it was. Black people were not a menace. Black people were refugees from domestic terror. When the paper says the Negro problem has entered a new and dangerous phase, what they really meant was black labor was no longer staying in its assigned place. Cheap, controllable Southern field hands were becoming Northern wage earners. The plantation system was cracking. The so-called problem wasn't black migration. The problem was black mobility. What was actually happening? Between 1915 and 1930, over 1 million black Southerners fled lynchings, sharecropping debt traps, peonage, just nothing but slavery by another name, fueled by convict leasing, political disenfranchisement, racial terror uses economic control. They weren't chasing dreams. They were escaping a racial caste system enforced by violence. But the language used by white institutions framed survival as threat. Not black citizens seek safety, wages, and dignity, but ignorance, prejudice, and passion, menace. That wording is psychological warfare. It turns victims into invaders, self-defense into aggression, freedom into instability. The real fear underneath. Northern industry needed labor during World War I. Black workers filled the gap. But once black people earned industrial wages, moved into cities, voted, organized labor, built newspapers, formed political blocs, the myth of white economic supremacy started wobbling. So the press did what power always does: pathologize the oppressed. Not white mobs attack black neighborhoods, but racial tension. Not white resistance to equality, but Negro problem. See, that menace language is familiar, isn't it? Fast forward 100 plus years, and the formula hasn't changed. 1919 phrase, Negro menace. Modern equivalent, urban crime crisis. 1919 phrase, race problem. Modern equivalent, inner city culture. 1919, migration threat. Modern equivalent, demographic change anxiety. 1919, dangerous phase. Modern equivalent, social instability. See, same fear, just new vocabulary. The fear has never been black existence. It's always been black independence. Here's the part they never say out loud. The Great Migration was one of the greatest acts of collective self-liberation in U.S. history. Those migrants built Chicago's black political machine, Detroit's labor power, Harlem's cultural explosion, black middle-class neighborhoods, and national civil rights networks. That menace produced jazz, black press, voting blocs, home ownership, and civil rights infrastructure. Oppression called it a threat. History calls it a turning point. That 1919 quote isn't about black people. It's about how white America reacts every time black people move toward freedom. And every time the script is the same. Freedom looks like disorder. Equality looks like danger. Dignity looks like rebellion. But migration wasn't chaos, it was strategy. Not a menace, a mass refusal to stay where terror put us. This is the Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM. It's your third eye optometrist, Patrice Gibbs, on the air here. Yeah. The system is not broken. It's operating perfectly. People keep saying the system is broken. No. Broken means it failed to do what it was designed to do. What we are living in is a system doing its job with terrifying efficiency. The confusion comes from a simple mistake. People think the system exists to serve human needs. It doesn't. It exists to serve power, profit, and control. Once you understand that, everything makes sense. A nation run by finance will manufacture debt. When banks sit at the center of a society, debt becomes the bloodstream of the nation. Not education, not health, not innovation, debt. Student loans, mortgages, credit cards, municipal bonds, national deficits. The population is not meant to be free. It's meant to be financially tethered. A person in debt cannot take risks, cannot speak freely, cannot walk away from exploitation. Debt disciplines the workforce better than chains ever did. In every economic crisis, watch closely. Wealth doesn't disappear, it moves upward. Homes lost, savings wiped. But the institutions that engineered the collapse larger than before. That's not failure. That's design. Healthcare for profit is not healthcare. It's disease management. In a profit-driven medical system, illness is not the enemy. Unmonetized health is. A cured patient exits the market. A managed condition creates lifelong revenue. So we build an industry around treating symptoms instead of causes. Advertising pills like soda. Ignoring food deserts, pollution, stress, poverty, the real drivers of disease. Preventative care will shrink the market. Systemic reform would threaten investors. So instead, we medicalize survival while the conditions making people sick remain untouched. The system doesn't want you dead. Dead people don't pay. The system wants you alive, medicated, and dependent. You ever see them commercials? There's some of them side effects. Some of them side effects, like ain't no leakage. The hell? That's not a side effect. That's a major goddamn effect. All right, moving along on this. A war economy requires permanent enemies. A state structured around militarism cannot afford peace. War isn't an event, it's an industry. Eisenhower tried to tell you. Weapons manufacturing, private contractors, reconstruction deals, security technology, surveillance expansion. Peace shuts factories down. Peace cuts budgets. Peace reduces control. So fear must be cultivated. Threats must be magnified. New enemies must be introduced as old ones fade. The public is trained to equate violence with safety. Bombing becomes defense. Occupation becomes stability. Surveillance becomes protection. A population living in fear will surrender freedoms willingly. Again, not dysfunction, design. The media does not inform, it conditions. A nation governed by media logic cannot know truth. Because truth is slow, complex, often uncomfortable. But media profit models reward speed, emotion, conflict, and simplification. So reality gets edited in the narratives. Nuance gets cut for time. Rage outperforms reason. The goal is not to inform citizens. It's to hold attention, shape perception, and keep the population reacting instead of thinking. A distracted public is a governable public. A divided public is a controllable public. Information has been industrialized, and truth doesn't scale well in factories. I'll tell you the core reality here. When survival is monetized, illness is monetized, fear is monetized, information is monetized, you do not get justice, health, peace, or truth. You get markets built around human vulnerability. And the most dangerous lie ever told? Just vote harder. Just trust the process. The system will correct itself. Systems correct toward their incentives, not morality. What this means. This is not about good people versus bad people. It's about structures that reward harm and call it normal. You cannot reform a machine designed to extract by asking it to nurture. You cannot beg institutions built on profit to prioritize people. You cannot expect truth from systems that profit from confusion. Real change does not start with slogans. It starts with understanding that the system's outcomes are not accidents. They are policies. They are priorities. They are design features. And once people see that clearly, truly see it, fear begins to break, obedience weakens, and control loses its invisibility. That's when power shifts, when eyes are open. I'm Patrice Gibbs, WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. Hey, Steve, I see you. Hey, peace and power, Brother Jardea. Yes, sir. Big ups to Black Awakening Movement. Thanks for having me on your discussion. Really enjoyed it. That's what a hell of a group. All right. Before I go back on the air, before I turn this mic back on, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to talk about. You sorry bastards. I'm going to tell you about some goat fuckers. WHGE 95.3 FM. This is The Open Eye. Tell you about some goat screwers. Hypothetically, if someone was accused of having sex with goats by over 30 different people and regularly denied it, but also dropped very public hints about how much they liked to have sex with goats for decades and ran a goat pageant to find the best looking goats, and was best friends with someone who got convicted of screwing goats and trafficking goats to friends all over the world who also liked to screw goats. And his name was in the classified Goat Screwers Chronicles 5,000 times, more than Jesus was in the Bible. And he wished other goat screwers well in prison. What do you think the odds are that person is also a goat screwer? Big up, Sister Tracy. Thank you. Let's stop whispering. Let's stop pretending. Let's stop acting confused. Because what we are watching in this country is not uncertainty. It is organized denial in defense of power. Hypothetically, if a man is accused by dozens of people of the same twisted behavior for decades, if he surrounds himself with others who are also convicted of that same behavior, if his name lives in the records like it pays rent there, if he jokes about it, hints at it, normalizes it, builds social circles around it, and we are still told nothing's proven, be fair. Let's not rush the judgment. That's not fairness, that's protection. But here's the rule, America. If a poor man has smoke, he's guilty. If a rich man has smoke, we investigate the smoke. We analyze the smoke. We debate the smoke. We form committees around the smoke. Meanwhile, the fire keeps burning. See, accountability in this country is not about truth. It's about rank. The higher you sit, the more benefit of the doubt you get. The more people rewrite logic for you. The more institutions bend like rubber. Suddenly patterns don't matter. Associations don't matter. History doesn't matter. But let that be a school teacher, a bus driver, a warehouse worker. They will be finished before the press conference ended. So what's really happening? We are watching class solidarity among the powerful. They don't defend innocence. They defend status. They defend each other because exposure of one threatens the whole network. And they rely on one thing, that the public will argue about procedure while predators hide behind privilege. But here's the truth. They don't want spoken out loud. When decades of smoke follow a person, that is not coincidence, that is a trail. And the reason nothing happens is not because there's no fire, it's because too many people are warming their hands by it. This is not about goats. This is not about scandal. This is about a system that protects the powerful first, the truth second, the people last. And until we break that protection racket, justice will always stop at the gates of wealth. Patterns don't lie, power does. And don't think I forgot. Trump was right there when that child's uncle threw her infant in Lake Michigan. I ain't forget that shit. WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm right with you, y'all. Yeah. And deal with these fake ass people. All right. WHGE 95.3 FM. Come on there, y'all. All right. All right, let's talk plane this morning. I know some people ain't gonna like it. I don't give a damn. Writer Tahishi Coates says something that should rattle your bones, not just your politics. If you can't draw the line at genocide, you probably can't draw the line at democracy. That's not a hot take. That's a diagnosis. See, folks keep asking, why can't the Democratic Party defend democracy the way they say they will? Why does every red line... Sucky. All right, sorry about that. Why does every red line turn pink? Why does every moral emergency become a messaging problem? Why does outrage get scheduled around fundraising emails? Yeah. They send out them emails and text messages and robot calls talking about, yeah, we're going to protect you from the monster. Send us $5. Here's the uncomfortable answer, because if you train yourself to explain away mass death, you can explain away any goddamn thing. What's this? Come on, y'all. Who has texted me? Genocide is supposed to be the stop sign of humanity. The emergency brake. The moment politics shuts up and morality takes over. If leaders or parties could look at an entire population being crushed, displaced, erased, and start talking about complex geopolitics and strategic alliances, then they've already crossed the line. They've already accepted a world where some human beings are negotiable. And once human beings are negotiable over there, rights are negotiable over here. That's the part people don't want to face. You think moral compromise has a passport? You think it stays overseas? You think a system that normalizes overwhelming state violence in one place is going to suddenly be gentle with protesters, with poor people, with migrants, with black communities, with dissenters at home? Power does not have two personalities. If your government can rationalize children buried under rubble abroad, it can rationalize surveillance here. Police crackdowns here. Silencing journalists here. Criminalizing protests here. Democracy doesn't die in a dramatic movie scene. It erodes through the same logic used to justify acceptable casualties. See, that's Coates' warning. This isn't just about foreign policy. This is about moral muscle. A society that refuses to feel certain suffering eventually loses the ability to defend its own freedom. Because democracy is not just voting booths and speeches. Democracy rests on one core belief. Human life has equal weight. Not strategic weight, not donor weight, not polling weight, human weight. Once that belief cracks, democracy becomes paperwork. That's why this woman is bigger than party loyalty, bigger than red versus blue, bigger than cable news talking points. This is about what we're willing to normalize, what we're willing to scroll past, what we're willing to call complicated when it's really just catastrophic. That's right, brother Jardea. Power does not have two personalities. And get with that. Human reform politics, if it means anything, it means bringing humanity back to the center. Asking first, who is being crushed? Who is being erased? Who is being told their suffering is regrettable but necessary? Because if your politics keep stepping over bodies and still calls itself pragmatic, it will step over democracy easily. Same logic, different victims. We are not at a strategy crisis. We're at a conscious crisis. And history is very clear about what happens to societies that lose the ability to draw a moral line. They don't just lose elections, they lose themselves. Stay alert. Stay human. Keep your eye open. I'm Patrice Gibbs. WHGE 95.3 FM. The open eye. I know y'all notice I ain't got no glasses on. I had laser surgery this week. And I can't see out them damn glasses. So I tried some reading glasses. I can't see out of them either. Jeez Louise. All right. But I can see. I can see what these people are about. I can see history. And laser surgery didn't blind me to the reality of who these people are and have always been. Let's talk history, but let's talk about it accurately. Early European settlement in what became the United States wasn't some noble migration, a sense chasing freedom. I'm an old movie fan. There's a pirate movie called Captain Blood starring Earl Flynn. And in the movie, Earl Flynn was a doctor, an Irish doctor in Britain. And the rebels were running around and this, that, and the other. This is the story they want to give you. Mm-hmm. And he was helping the rebels and he was treating them because the king was so oppressive. And they caught him. And they had him all in court. Mm-hmm. And the judge in that court, sentenced these fools to death. Mm-hmm. But one of the ministers talked to the king and said, yo, we can't kill all these people. Tell you what, that Columbus dude that came out of Spain, remember he went over there and found a new land. We got to get rid of these people, I know. See, they didn't send their best and brightest. A large portion of colonialists were debtors, were religious extremists rejected at home. They were political dissidents, indentured servants, prison labor, and transported convicts, especially in the later waves to the colonies. And give you this idea like they sent their best and brightest over here. I'll be damned. They emptied their prisons. They sent the rapists and the murderers. Europe didn't send its best. It sent its excess population, its problems, its instability. Colonization was an economic pressure valve. And here's the part people skip. It wasn't just bad people moving. It was a system built on conquest, extraction, and dehumanization. Land was taken through violence, big surprise. Indigenous nations were displaced, broken, or wiped out. African people were kidnapped and turned into property. The legal DNA of the country formed in that environment, where property rights outranked human rights if the human wasn't considered fully human. And that legacy didn't disappear. It mutated. Let's fast forward to now. You're not watching a debate about morality. You're watching a debate about who the law applies to. Because here's the pattern. Regular people commit crimes and they go to prison. Poor people commit crimes and they go to prison. Black people commit crimes or get accused of crimes, and it's immediate punishment. Powerful people connected to money, royalty, corporations, politics, or they get investigations. Complex cases, ongoing review, delay. That's not accidental. That's power protecting itself. The outrage over elite sexual abuse scandals isn't just about the crimes. It's about the fact that the system hesitates when the accused sit near wealth, influence, or institutions people are trained to revere. The contradiction people feel is this. Laws are strict for the powerless and flexible for the powerful. That's the real sickness. But here's where the analysis needs discipline. Saying this race is criminals is too sloppy and too easy to dismiss, unless people ignore the core issue. The issue is structures of power and not bloodlines. History shows that when systems are built, conquest, exploitation, hierarchy, those systems will repeatedly protect abusers at the top, no matter their background, because protecting power becomes more important than protecting people. That's not a racial trait, that's a power structure trait. The real question isn't who founded the country. The real question is, what does a country built on law bang when the accused are wealthy or connected? That's the through line from colonization to today. Different rules for different people. Human beings treated as expendable when profit or status is involved. Institutions closing ranks when elite reputations are threatened. That's the tradition that continues. Not some genetic inheritance of crime, but an inheritance of unaccountable power. If people want to argue about age of consent laws, criminal statutes, and moral standards, fine. But none of it means anything if enforcement depends on the last name, the bank account, or the race, or the political usefulness of the accused. That's not justice, that's feudalism in a suit and tie. And people aren't angry because they hate history. They're angry because they can see the pattern. Truth exposed, consequences optional. And that's the real rock. Damn your immigration policies. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. Yeah. Go ahead, do this. Yeah, give me that. And we talk about something I didn't get to talk about last week, and that's the arrest of Don Lemon, and it was few other, I think it was like 3 other black journalists, that were arrested with him. Now, when a black journalist is handcuffed, the woman may feel sudden. Breaking news, flashing lights, urgent commentary. But history moves in long arcs, and this arc is familiar. The targeting of black reporters sits inside a centuries-long struggle over who gets to name reality. The black press has never been just media. It has been archive, alarm system, organizing tool, and moral witness. And because it remembers what power once forgotten, power has always tried to shut it down. Yeah. Let's go all the way back. 1827, decades before emancipation. Freedom's Journal launched in New York. Its declaration, we wish to plead our own cause. It did more than announce a paper. It announced a transfer of narrative authority. Black people would no longer exist solely as subjects in someone else's story. They would be authors. Now I'm going to relate that to some of our historians. Specifically Chancellor Williams, the author of The Destruction of Black Civilization. Why that book is so important? Because it talks about Africa from a black narrative, from a black African-centered narrative. Not from an outsider looking in. Because it talks about Africa from an African mind. And not only does it talk about Africa, but it talks about the European from the African viewpoint. And that's what the black press did. Maybe hear people talk about, the way they arrested Don Lemon and what have you. Yeah, they made a show of it and what have you. And some people, and rightfully so, were upset about it. Now, like I said, let's look at the history. Because Don Lemon is still rich and powerful. And they cuffed him up, took him home, and his lawyers will fix this. Ida B. Wells had no such power. They burned down Ida B. Wells' press. They burned down her press room, her newspaper. And for what? Because she was reporting on the way they were lynching black businessmen. Because you look at lynching. And look at the people that lynch. You ever notice, and I told you this before, they're always well dressed. They didn't care about the stepping fetchets and the broken, or what they call broken English speaking black people. The black people that put their head down and wouldn't look a white man in the eye. You had one of those black men that stood tall on this business, that knew how to run a business, that made a difference for his community, that keep them from being ripped off by the larger white community. Here's a problem. And Ida B. Wells reported on that. And they tried to kill her for it. So they called the black press soldiers without swords. Because our words were so powerful in the Chicago Defender and the Pittsburgh Courier. They didn't just report on the Great Migration, they facilitated it. They printed train schedules north, job listings, and housing leads. And what did the South, the Pittsburgh Courier and the Defender, the Chicago Defender, had to operate underground in the South. Freedom of press, my ass. A Southern official tried their damnedest to ban these papers. Railroad porters smuggled copies. They would, when they was riding through southern towns, they showed this fantasy of black kids chasing the train and waving at them. The reality was them black kids were waiting for those porters to throw the Chicago Defender and the Pittsburgh Courier off the train so they could take it back to their communities and get that education. Goddamn right. Soldiers without swords. The black press remembers and keeps the receipts. And every time it does, the power faces a choice. Reform in the light or reach for the shadows. Soldiers without swords. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM. This is the Open Eye. The Democratic Party isn't the left. You know what it is? It's the safety valve of the system. Let's be clear. The Democratic Party does not represent the left. It doesn't seek to dismantle oppressive power structures. It doesn't challenge the foundations of capitalism, white supremacy, or the carceral state. Instead, it exists to absorb dissent, neutralize rupture, and preserve the status quo. When the people rise, generally, spontaneously, demanding structural change, the Democratic Party shows up not to lead that change, but to contain it, translate it, and divert it back into forms that stabilize the very institutions people are fighting against. And it's not incompetence. That's function. Watch what they don't do. Abolish ICE. Nowhere is this more obvious than with the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. Across the country, after federal agents fatally shot 2 civilians in Minneapolis and other cities. Incidents that crystallized public disgust with immigration enforcement. The people didn't ask for procedural improvements. They demanded abolition, the complete dismantling of an agency that embodies state violence against immigrants and communities of color and black people. Public opinion has shifted dramatically. The majority of Americans now support ending ICE entirely, and opposition to its tactics is resoundingly widespread. Yet what did Democrat leadership do? They talk about reforms, and they refuse to embrace abolition as a goal. They float slogans like reimagine enforcement and rein in abuses. They insist on body cameras and ID requirements and mask bans, procedural adjustments that make the violence look a little less ugly on camera, but do nothing to end the violence itself. They explicitly avoid the term abolish ICE because consultants told them it's politically risky. Even as the people are screaming for exactly that. Some Democratic lawmakers have even rejected calls for abolition policy. Not because abolition was defeated on principles, but because they fear messaging risk. One Democrat in Congress flat out told clergy that abolishing ICE is unrealistic and that reform is the only responsible path. Same crap they talked during slavery. Meanwhile, party leaders in Congress would rather craft a list of demands to improve enforcement protocols than push for dissolution of an agency whose very purpose is not enforcement. Its very purpose is to instill fear. This isn't pragmatism, it's political cowardice. Let's drop the euphemisms. Progressives and young activists lifted abolish ICE into national conversation. People in the streets and in the polls made it clear the agency's existence is intolerable. But instead of joining that demand, Democratic leadership consciously pulls back, hedging, qualifying, retreating, because they think they can massage the outrage and the safe policy without threatening the underlying power structure. That's not leadership, that's containment. They're not afraid of ICE's brutality. They're afraid of losing control of the political narrative. They're far more comfortable with reforms that keep the system functioning than with revolutionary change that could actually dismantle that system. The party of reform always preserves the system. Look at the pattern. People demand abolition of harmful institutions. Democrats respond with regulated, professionalized versions of the same goddamn institutions. The system survives, looking slightly less ugly, but delivering the same outcomes. This is how reformism works. It absorbs anger without transforming power. It sanitizes violence without ending it. It rebrands repression without removing its tools. And when you look at ICE specifically, public support for abolition exists. Some Democratic officials have called for scrapping the agency. But Democratic leadership at the national level won't make abolition their platform because they fear political optics more than state violence. That's not progress. That's political self-preservation. What are they really protecting? Ask yourself, are they protecting communities from state violence? Or are they protecting the institutions of the state from accountability? When upward demands abolition, the only real remedy in the party answers with procedural tweaks that tells you everything you need to know. The Democratic Party is not a vehicle for structural transformation. It is the safety brake the system engages whenever ordinary people threaten to break the system. That's unacceptable. Fucking cowards. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. All right. Third eye optometrist with some laser surgery for you. And just like that, another lens clean. Another illusion cracked. And something you heard today made you uncomfortable? Good. Because growth never comes wrapped in comfort. It comes wrapped in truth. Remember, the loudest voices don't always carry the most truth. And the most repeated stories aren't always the most honest ones. So keep asking questions. Keep challenging what doesn't add up. And keep thinking for yourself in a world that profits from your confusion. This has been the Open Eye, where awareness is power and ignorance is expensive. Remember to protect your mind, guard your energy, move with intention. I hope you learned something today, because I learned something before I got here. And as we always tell you, destiny determines who enters your life, but you decide who stays. Therefore, value those who value you, and don't treat those as a priority who treat you as an option. Thanks for joining me. I'm Patrice Gibbs. This is the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. Peace. All right. Hey, Sister Tracy, if I didn't say what's up, thank you. All right. As we always tell you, don't think I forgot. Pay attention, because it's coming. Global African supremacy. Because the world is a much better place when the African rule. Peace and love.